Good evening, everybody. This is Grant coming at you from a local Walmart in Florida. Um, Between my email and other social media stuff, and then the comments on here on YouTube and messages on YouTube, I've had people ask me again, and I've gone over this before in other videos, about the cheapest or cheaper ways of going about traveling around. Roughly how you can do it. So this video is some more for those people who are just thinking about going out traveling. Who've never done it before. Let's say the 18-year-old kid just fresh out of their parents' house, doesn't want to go to college yet, wants to take a year off traveling, etc. Wants to know kind of the thrills they're about of doing it or not. I mean, I've done some time backpacking, hitchhiking, riding on buses, trains, using rental cars, using my own car to go cross country, using a camper van, living in a van, car, minivan, car, camper van, and now this car, among other things. So I'm going to try my best to go over kind of the basics of it. To travel across country, let's say if you're out of a backpack like that, I don't know if you can see it right now, that's my newest backpack, it's back there. That's a medium size kind of hunting backpack that you'll find in sporting goods section in Walmart. Normally, if I could afford it, I'd go with 511 tactical or an army surplus style bag, because they tend to just hold up better over long periods of time. Your backpack, that typical backpack that you get from Walmart, may not be as great of a bag over the long run. It might work for you for a week, might work for you for a couple months, but I've found out that the cheaper you go in bags, you don't want to be rolling down, let's say, the strip in Las Vegas on like with a rolling bag or something, and have the bottom of the rolling bag rip out or the rollers roll off the bag, or carrying a duffel bag and have the handle of the duffel bag, tear apart from use over time. Not to say that these bags won't have that happen, it's just the more you spend on a backpack, the better off you are. That's the first tip for you if you're going to be backpacking, hitchhiking. Second main tip of the day is less is more. You may think that you need to pack a stove, you need to pack this, you need to pack that with you, you need to pack 2 weeks worth of clothing, etc. If you're in shape and you just like that sort of thing, if you go hiking a lot, then I would, say go ahead, right ahead. But for the average Joe out there then decides to go out there and decide to just start backpacking for a lifestyle, you'll learn really fast. Packing that thing day in, day out, the less is more. The more you can make one particular article of clothing work as 10 different articles of clothing, etc., the much better you are off. You'll learn real quickly in this world, not to say that I'm dirty or van dwellers or hitchhikers or anything like that are dirty or anything like that in example, but you'll learn real quick that showers aren't necessarily an everyday thing. Back when you have your apartment or living at your parents' house or your own house or whatever, you might be used to showering every day. Some people might be used to showering twice a day, etc. But when you get out in the real world and you are out there literally backpacking, your supplies for water and places to go, I mean, if you know where to go, they abound everywhere, and you can get free showers, etc., which I'll go over in a future video. But basically, you should plan on being somewhat sweaty, somewhat dirty, and dealing with it, so to speak. And you can use wipes to deal with it, and you can clean up in restrooms real quick and so on, but just right off the hand, just kind of get used to the fact that you may potentially, in speaking, be dirty for a few days at a time between being able to shower here or there, etc., depending where you're at. But basically, for people that are just outright gonna backpack it like that, there's hitchhiking. Obviously, is the free way to get around. Some, if you go with truck drivers or some other people on the road, some may expect you to do favors, physical favors or whatever for them, in exchange for doing, for them giving you a ride. It's up to you. I personally wouldn't go that route, but it's up to you as to, if you're attracted to them or not, and if you want to do a favor for them or not. I saw on a Craigslist related article, not that I was looking for it or anything, I was just looking underneath the ride shares for possible ride share to go further out west later on, I'm thinking, in a different update video. But I saw in this particular video, there's this woman in desperate need here in Florida trying to get to, I forget where it was, like North Carolina or someplace straight north that I'm not going to anyway, but I happen to notice she was advertising right off the bat that if truck drivers or anybody that come along that she didn't have money, but she would do favors for the ride. Personally, either end of that deal, I wouldn't go there because it's just breeds all sorts of diseases and who knows what. But desperate times call for desperate measures for some people, I guess. But I just say that because I know of a lot of different resources that I could get around with if I had to, so I could, and you don't always have to accept every ride that comes along just because they pull up and say, yeah, you can hop on in. The situation looks creepy or whatever, you can say, ah, man, I'm good, never mind. And then I'll move on. That's the cheap way to get around, or you can go on Craigslist, like I said, or Couchsurfing, or a bunch of other different websites, and arrange rides that way with strangers. Or I've heard of a couple camping sites where RVers and van dwellers and car drivers and like that will give you rides. If you network and hook up with them through websites or emails or phones, etc. So if you just get out there and put the word out so far that you're looking for a ride, there's possibility you can even pick up a ride with a local that you didn't know goes this way and that way all the time. Craigslist is a biggie on that, trying to get a free ride share. If you're not going to go free, if you have a couple $100 to spend or whatever, I would go by bus. Greyhound is your next best, cheapest way to go if you're not wanting to do the totally free. If you want something more a little dependable, I guess they'll give you a scheduled route and you'll have some layovers in places that you can charge stuff and stuff. On the bus, you won't be able to charge stuff. So nowadays, you can charge your phones and everything on the bus and on some buses, and some buses even have Wi-Fi nowadays. But back in the day, it didn't used to be that route. Some buses are nice coming out of Vegas and whatnot. You'll have an onboard TV movie that they'll show you if you're on the bus overnight, etc. And the other thing I would say, if you're planning on doing a backpacking type of thing like that, ride the bus or the train or whatever you're going to ride at night, so you can sleep on there and on that platform in relatively safety, knowing that all your bags are locked up underneath or whatever and people can't get to your stuff while you're sleeping. If that's the case, if you plan on taking like a bus or train trip. Third up the line would be a train trip. I've used Amtrak. They're a little bit more expensive than a bus, or a little bit less depending on where you're at. On the East Coast, it's a hell of a lot faster and easier to get around on Amtrak than it would be on cheaper than it would be on a bus. They're relatively within about the same rate, except for on an Amtrak. On a train, you can actually move around between the carts. And if you take a train, that's one of my advice for you, is to move around between the cars. Don't just stay in your particular car that has your coach seat or whatever that you bought. Move around to the other cars, because you have a dining car and you have I forget what they call it, like a viewing car and stuff that you can move around into, and you can find a lot more space that you can spread out with instead of being squished in with other people in the coach seating. Just something to throw out there if you're going to take Amtrak. I like taking Amtrak. I like the idea of their 30-day rail pass. It's somewhat expensive, or not, depending on the time of year. Nearer to the holidays, it'll be expensive. But 30-day rail pass lets you go anywhere in the U.S. for 30 days. In any of the cities, you can get off and on and off and on. And with the 30-day rail pass, they have some of the train stations, not all, have lodges where you can keep your stuff and where you can wait for a train if you're not going to explore the city. They have nice little bar lounges that you can stay over at, that you can power your stuff on. And the train, you can power charge your equipment that you bring with you on to, if you needed to be. The thing I will say about bus and train tickets, if you're broke or near broke and trying to save money, there's in Utah, Nevada, I think, California, kind of more of the western states out that side of the USA, you can go to social services programs, various different ones, and they will give you a bus ticket on their dime, so to speak, if you have a relative, say, over in Maine or Florida or wherever you're trying to go in that general direction. If you have a relative that they can call and say, yeah, you can go stay over there with them, with that person. You don't have to necessarily go and stay there with that person, but you can use that as a way to get across country. Those programs come out of social services, out of tax dollars for social services, but at the same time, they come, technically speaking, out of your social security number. That's part of the reason why you have to give up your name and your ID and your social security number to get access to these services, is because they essentially charge that number, your social security number, and so basically you're paying for it yourself, technically, along with the taxpayers anyway, if you feel guilty about that, using that system in any way. But that option is available if you can't afford a bus ticket. Not all the time, depends on your county and your state and where you're at, but I would look into it. And you can do so by calling up the 211, the hotline, information line, or by checking with Salvation Army or a bunch of other social service programs out there. If they can't help you themselves, they'll know what kind of program locally that they have that can help you out, get across country if you're stranded or whatever. I always keep that in the back of my mind in case my car breaks down or something happens and I need to get on the other side of the country for some reason. And I didn't necessarily have the funds to do so or something. Obviously, or you pay for the bus or the train ticket yourself, which is not too much. A couple days work on a couple $100 will get you cross country. Usually, if you can find some deals on websites and etc. But I do advise both for the bus and the train to, if you're trying to pay for everything yourself, to call both the bus station locally or the train station locally and check against the websites and see if you can get a better deal online or at the bus locally. Because sometimes, depending on the time of year, they'll have a better deal locally or they'll have a better deal online, depending on how they gotta fill their seats. Obviously, you can do what I'm doing right now and do car camping. Take a car or a van or something that's big enough to live in, put something for a bed in there, go across country. You have to keep in mind, though, that you need to keep up on your car insurance, your gas, obviously, and then, be prepared for if your car breaks down. And you have to have the car repairs for that. Sorry, the video is getting darker. The sun's going down as I do this. There's obviously, if you really want to plan an expensive trip, you can take a plane. Sometimes you can get pretty good plane tickets. Like I saw a round trip ticket, I think, from Rapid City to Vegas was like $69, or I remember $69 each way. I don't remember, that was a long time ago, but still, there's double-digit tickets that you can get instead of triple-digit tickets in terms of, a couple $100 or $500 plane tickets. Depending on where you want to go, that would be possibly cheaper than the gas it would take to get down there and back on a round trip type of thing. You can also look into taking these vacation packages through travel agents. Not always a good thing, but sometimes it'll get you down to Vegas for a week, and week accommodations, and depending on how the accommodations, how much the hotel would normally cost, etc., might be worth your time to go through a travel agent to do that, because they can sometimes get better deals than you can hook up something yourself on just like a weekend or a week-long trip. U-Haul usually does $20 vans for in-town, $20 a day that you can rent a van. They don't prefer that. I think it is technically illegal to sleep in a U-Haul van that you rent, but you can get away with it if you had to. Go someplace and rent a U-Haul van for $20, and then you have your home, your temporary home, your shelter, your storage, and a place and a way to drive around. In any city, anywhere. And then you got Uber or Lyft or any of the rideshare companies for the first time around will give you a free ride by signing up for their app. So you can get up to about $20 worth of a fare to go across the city somewhere for the first time that you use their app. So that's handy to know in the back of your head if you're on foot and wanted to get across the city. You can do so cheap or free by using it for the first time, one time only, usually. Unless they have deals on the internet. You could go the cheaper route and buy a bicycle, manually power that yourself over across the country, bicycle and a tent, and pretty much get by that way. Or you can go a little bit more expensive in terms of repairs and insurance again and everything, and get a motorcycle and do it that way. Or you can go kind of expensive, rent your own RV for a rental RV place, or buy a cheap old RV for around $1,000, $1,800 or something. Decently reliable, older style RV than your 70s or 80 models that have low mileage. Because the thing about RVs is a lot of times they're used once or twice a year and that's it. So you might find a 1970s RV that's old because it's 1970s, but it only has like 50 or 60,000 miles on it, even if that. You might even find one that's got like 12,000 miles on it, just not even broke in, because they're just never used. They're used by people who already have their houses. And so they just use it as the 1 week a year that they get a vacation, or just as a weekender thing, and it doesn't get much use. So with RVs, and plus you can pay cheaper RV insurance to where you can pay for the whole year worth of insurance for the RV for like a couple $100 or $300 or something. It's way cheaper than auto insurance, but keep in mind, if that's your only vehicle, you're going to screw yourself over in the future about car insurance, because your car insurance does not count as RV insurance and vice versa. So if you had an RV for 6 months, like I had a camper van for 6 months, I paid insurance on it, had it up front for 6 months for cheaper. Then came to find out when I went to go get this car, that the car insurance to get this car went up a little more, because of the fact that I didn't have I wasn't paying into constant monthly car insurance, because I only had the RV that I drove around with. So even if you get an RV, I would recommend paying into RV insurance. It might be worth it in the long run to make sure you're constantly doing that for the future, just so you can get lower rates. Because you just stop paying car insurance for a while and then you go back to doing it, and they'll probably give you a higher rate because of that, because they don't know if you were driving around without insurance or what the deal was. And the way this system works. But with RVs come the expenses of possibly parking in an RV park and then having to pay for all, the use of the hookups, but you get tanks and electricity and everything, so there's a trade-off on that. But that's the various different ways you can get around. The other things I would mention if you're on foot on backpacking is I've heard of people using a car hauler. They stop at a truck stop if there's a car hauler in the lot, like a truck car hauler that hauls 6 or 8 cars. You just sneak into the minivan or the car that's on there. Most of those cars almost always all those cars are unlocked. I did not know this myself either, but they're unlocked. And you can choose to hide in the car itself, or hide in the trunk, or hide in a minivan, kind of suburban that's on there, whatever it is, and get your free lift that way, and literally hide across the country, because depending on how vigilant the truck driver is, he may or may not check all those cars every time they stop and get going, unless they happen to know, or somebody told them that somebody snuck in there or something. But you could sneak yourself a ride across town or across the country that way, and then you don't have to deal with the favors from truck drivers or etc. that you may have to do if you just outright asked them for a ride. Or you can freight train hop, but then you have to look out for what they call the freight train yard bulls. They're guards, security guards that are in the yard, and they have been known to beat and possibly kill people, I guess, out in the rail yard, and then blame it on the train or whatever. If you're freight train hopping like a dirty kid, it's a wild adventure, but I don't know for sure if I would do that or not. There's all course empty trucks at a truck stop. If it empty trailer of a truck, you walk back to the back of the truck and you can just see at the truck doors if they're locked or not. If they're not locked, you can open it up and see if it's open, or if there's enough room for you to be in there or not. And you can take the risk of riding around in a truck that has cargo or doesn't have cargo and pissing off a truck driver, so to speak, hiding in the back to get across country if you wanted to go that route. On a freight train, you can also use the caboose of a freight train. Sometimes they have cabooses on the back of the rail of the freight train, and you can hide in there or get along with the train crew itself and get a nice, free, easy ride across country if you wanted to go that route. One more thing I'll mention for hitchhikers: cops, local city cops, if they're called on you when you're at a interstate exit, off-ramp or on-ramp, trying to get a ride out, a city cop might be able to, depending on if they want to or not, take you to the next off-ramp. If that off-ramp is not getting you any rides, they might be able to take you to the next off-ramp, or the next off-ramp might have a truck stop that you can wait at, or whatever. So just simply ask them for a ride. City cops won't be able to take you out of the city, but they will be able to bounce you around to the next off-ramp or something if something happens. If it's up to them if they want to or not, obviously. But county cops, like the county deputy, might possibly give you a ride from this county to your current county that you're in to the next, to kind of get rid of the riffraff, so to speak, to kind of help you move along, that kind of thing. They might give you a ride, depending on the type of cop, to the next county over, and then place you in the next county over in a city somewhere or something. You may have possible better chances of hitchhiking out. Or state troopers can get you halfway across the state. Normally they won't be able to get you all the way across the state unless it's a special situation in which they're driving across state for some reason or another. But sometimes you might get lucky and get all the way across state with a state trooper. But that's the basics of backpacking, pretty much, in terms of the different types of ways you can do it. You can, the other thing I would mention is college towns. Depending on the time of year, if you know that if college is getting over, you're right there and that you're going to hitchhike during the same exact time that college is getting over. Say you're a college student and that's what you're going to do for the summer, is go hitchhiking. Even if they're strangers, just go stand out there on an off-ramp of a college town, and you're a little more likely to get a ride from what they call adolescents, or not so storied travelers, I guess. Or you can try your best to get dropped off at exits that have RV parks nearby and kind of a high transient type of population nearby, meaning a Walmart that has a whole bunch of RVs and camper vans and van trailers in it and stuff, because people like us are going to be more likely to give you a ride than somebody that's a local, obviously, because they live there locally, so they're not going very far anyway. But that's the end of this video. It's getting pretty dark because the sun's going down on me. Like and subscribe, leave comments, and I'll catch you in a flip. Peace. Hopefully that helped solve that question of traveling and backpacking for newbies. Peace.